Once Christmas was over, I unlocked my safe. My emergency funds are gone. We handed it to your sister, according to my dad. She intends to start a family. I had freezing hands. That evening, I called my attorney. A few emails were sent out the next morning. That afternoon, several accounts were examined. My sister gave me a call. "What did you do?" "You might want to check your inbox." I just stated. This year's Christmas was meant to be calm. For once, I was the host. I believed they may remember how to hold it if I supplied the warmth, not because I wanted to brag. I cleaned and I cooked. I purchased presents for nieces and nephews who hardly knew who I was. At the head of the table, my dad sat like a corduroy monument. As she took pictures for her tales, my sister drifted about the room. And my mother. Too preoccupied to inquire about my well-being, she was occupied with whispering under folded napkins. I got no thanks. Not for the home or the food. Not even for allowing them to remain for 2 more nights after their plumbing unexpectedly failed. Through it, I grinned. I gave it up. I reasoned that people may still see me if I didn't make it about me. They didn't. I didn't check the safe until after everyone had departed, after the wine glasses were piled in the dishwasher and the last of the pine needles had been swept. Not because I was anxious. It's just habit. When the house was empty and the stillness began to creep in, I did just that. Softly, the combination clicked. The money vanished as the door sprang open. Emergency funds, $14,000. Not investments, not retirement savings. Only safety. The sort of money you save in case you are forgotten. It had too. I remained calm. I didn't yell. I stood there looking at the empty room as if it were trying to say sorry. My dad entered at that moment using a dish towel to wipe his hands, as if he were a resident. He stated bluntly, "We gave it to your sister. She intends to start a family." My hands became icy. No. It was borrowed by us. No. She required assistance. Not even a warning. They didn't believe I should know, so they unlocked my safe, stole my emergency money, and gave it away. I remained silent. I just went to the corridor, took out my phone, and sat on the bench beside the coat rack. One evening, my lawyer picked up the phone on the second ring. He made a mistake. I explained what had transpired to him. "I'll begin the paper trail tonight," he replied after pausing. I gave a nod. I hung up even though he couldn't see me. The hour that followed was a haze. A few of emails were sent. A few accounts were examined. Cold things, quiet things. Nothing noteworthy. Not quite yet. My sister gave me a call that afternoon. Her voice was piercing, agitated, and already somewhat tearful. "What did you do?" I didn't speak louder. I didn't sigh at all. I hung up after saying, "You might want to check your inbox." She sent another SMS. But then again. And lastly, "This is being exaggerated by you. It just sat there like emergency cash sprang out of thin air like self-opening safes." I sat still. Cold coffee. Email threads are growing by the minute while my laptop softly glows on my desk. I had not yet responded. I was recalling all of the thefts, not just this one. There was no treachery in the safe. It was evidence of a pattern that was too profound to overlook. You can't unsee it after you've seen it. $9,800 was debited to my card a week before to her wedding. You don't have children or a spouse. You might as well put yourself to work. Bridesmaids chuckled. She grinned. I returned the smile and said, "I hope you find me useless soon." They treated the money as if it were air, and they accused me of being vengeful when I canceled everything. I had already paid off the mortgage. They explained it was only a bridge payment. A week later, I saw them purchasing patio furniture. In 2021, I settled her auto debt. "Nothing feels better than financial independence," she said as the caption for a photo she shared the same day. Every time I gave, she didn't even tag me. Each time I remained mute, they removed the origin. They gave the impression that they had constructed the ladder themselves. When I volunteered to co-sign their refinancing, I could still hear my mother's voice. The only person we can rely on is you." Although that was a phrase, she stated it as a compliment. The last footnote was this removal from the safe. I wasn't the son that people always expected me to be. Not visible. Each flashback came with fresh insight. On Christmas Eve, a neighbor took my seat. "The kitchen will be all right for you. Dinner for an anniversary. To those who are truly important. $12,400 to renovate the backyard. Text erased. Avoid being theatrical. The RSVP cards of my sister. The return address is my name, her wedding, my line of credit. Dad's voicemail. Perhaps it would be best if you stopped coming." Not all scenes were moments. It was a piece of info. I was in charge of the entire system. They just continued to collect dividends. What about the scary part? They were no longer even trying to hide it. They stopped acting like I was involved because they were so at ease taking advantage of me. A tiny part of me still hoped they would stop before it was too late. I didn't expect an apology. All I needed was reluctance. One sign, one pass. No one even blinked, even though they knew they had gone too far. Not him, not her, nobody. I decided as a result. No more flashbacks, no more polite sabotage, no more patterns. I was done being helpful. I had no intention of arguing. I was going to let them deal with the holes they never saw and go on. I didn't quarrel that evening when my sister called. I didn't elaborate. I made no attempt to recover what had been taken. I took back my identity. I didn't send rash emails after hanging up. They were accurate. A checklist that, unbeknownst to me, I had been mentally creating for years. My lawyer prepared the official disassociation documents for the first one. Take me out of every joint account. Begin the examination of asset protection. All liquid assets were transferred into a safe trust by my financial advisor, the second. Not include immediate family. The third. For the previous 5 years, my accountant ordered all family-related payments. Unauthorized ones should be flagged. Get the accompanying documentation ready. Retaliation wasn't the point. Regaining my infrastructure was the goal. I was logged into the little IT company's back end by midnight. I started from scratch. The same business that covertly managed my parents' cell phone plans, cloud backups, home security systems, and software licenses for their accounting firm. All under my business's purview. Everything is free. All in. Recognized. I turned off their smart thermostat automatic locks and cloud cams in order of precedence. At every family meal, they boasted about it. I disabled remote control of their home network by rerouting the DNS settings. The Wi-Fi I installed for them is no longer available. Their printer was unavailable, so they had to stop doing emergency troubleshooting. The shared family phone plan comes next. 5 lines, mine, theirs, as well as my sister's. I didn't postpone. I gave them full ownership of all lines. The service would be suspended after 72 hours if they didn't accept. The bill would go to them. No more free calls. I will no longer support the family's communication system. Then I thought about streaming services. I stopped assisting them with their services and let them deal with it independently. It would hurt, even though it was the smallest thing. The text messages began to come in by morning. My sister. The security cameras aren't working. Why I am unable to log in. My dad's mortgage company called. What did you do? My mom. You're not seriously doing this, are you? I didn't reply to any of them. They weren't asking. They were demanding the system to come back online. But the system was me, and I was logging out. By noon, they called. I didn't answer. I waited until the voicemail icon appeared. My dad's voice. Let's resolve this calmly. Let's talk like adults. I laughed out loud. He always circled back to that line. Talk like adults. After standing by while I was robbed, sidelined, erased by the evening, my sister messaged again. Netflix isn't working. Fix it, I replied. You said you didn't need me. No emoji, no punctuation, just fact. But I wasn't done. I logged into the back end of their accounting firm's IT system. They had no idea I still had admin-level access. They thought I'd set it up years ago as a family favor and let it go. They didn't know I'd quietly maintain their firewall protections, software updates, and encrypted backups through my company. They didn't know the domain was registered under my name. I deactivated the software license. I sent a notice via their admin dashboard. Effective immediately, the pro bono maintenance of the system is terminated. Please contact your new IT provider to arrange service continuity. I logged out. I waited 30 minutes later, the voicemails doubled by morning. My uncle's clinic, also on my company's legacy infrastructure, called my personal line in a panic. The system was down. They couldn't access patient records. Billing software was offline. I had quietly helped with everything that kept their business going. I didn't ruin it. It wasn't crashed by me. I just took the support off. They never constructed their own, so the digital scaffolding fell apart. That afternoon, I received a message from my cousin Ellie. "Did you pull everything?" I answered. The rest fell on its own after I pulled. She didn't ask any more questions. She called instead. For the first time in a year, we spoke. I already suspected it, and she confirmed it. That my parents had attempted to fabricate a story about me going rogue, that I had a mental illness, that I felt envious, traditional. Ellie, however, didn't buy it this time. She wasn't by herself. I forwarded copies of the paperwork to the important family members. It's out of accuracy, not spite. I didn't make any editorials. I forwarded the payment records and audit logs. My name appears on the system architecture in the screenshots. I added a brief note. I simply want the truth to be known to you. No answer is required. My dad texted me again that evening. You have now sufficiently made your point. But there was no point being made. The goal was to break the pattern. I denied entry to the family storage unit, which had housed my dad's old tools and all of the holiday decorations, and which I had covertly paid for the previous 3 years. At the very least, they enjoy flying. The locks were replaced. Next, I gave the mortgage company a call, removed myself from the refinance as a co-signer. During the call, the representative paused. You are aware that a foreclosure review will probably be triggered by this? She asked thoughtfully. I got it. I attested to the removal. My mother texted the mortgage company fix 3 hours later. That word always. I didn't respond. I moved all of the money that was left in the joint emergency fund to a different trust. Locked. Safe. Only I can access it. The messages got desperate. My sister. You're going overboard. Mom. You only have your family. For a long time, I gazed at the final one. I typed back after that. I was a family man. I no longer participate in it. I turned my phone off. I started the process of legally separating from their business entities the following day by giving my lawyer a call. Even residual liability was not what I wanted. Nothing that would tie me to their collapsing infrastructure was what I wanted. My ever-methodical lawyer hesitated. Would you like to formally notify them of their termination? He inquired. No. Let them feel the silence, I said. Let them experience what it's like when the scaffolding disappears, when the person they built their system on simply walks out, when the calls went unanswered, when the passwords didn't work, when the safety net was gone. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Not for walking away, not for letting the structure collapse, not for finally stepping out from under the weight they made me carry. They didn't lose their son that day. They lost their system, and I wasn't reinstalling it. I woke up to my phone buzzing like it wouldn't stop. Not dozens, hundreds. Calls, texts, voicemails piling up, all from the people I'd grown up calling family. They were in panic mode, and each message felt like a bullet. Mom's message. All caps. No punctuation. What have you done? We're suffering. Please fix this before things get worse. Dad's voicemail was a rant. You're not thankful following all that I did. This is what you do. Hopefully it was worthwhile. He played it repeatedly. A group of sisters texts family members. He's behaving illogically. He moved away from all assistance. Don't put your trust in him. It had 12 blue check marks and was marked urgent. They believed that someone would break if they screamed loud enough. However, I had mastered the art of silence, which is the loudest accusation. Despite my sister's pressure, I read the sequence that morning. Don't do this, or I'll reveal private information. Threats from the law. My parents' attorneys are requesting that services be resumed and that trust transfers be revoked. Appeals to emotions. Your nieces are afraid. We're deeply involved. Deeply. We must return home. Everything I anticipated. Predictable, methodical. However, they all began in the same area. Fear. Fear of being held responsible. Fear of losing what they considered to be normal. I didn't answer. I didn't argue. I watched. The official cease and desist from my sister's lawyer was forwarded by my lawyer an hour later, stating that I must stop any service interruption or risk injunctive relief and other undefined repercussions. They will sue if necessary, he added. The note from my lawyer was composed. They are able to file. Let's check to see. Your actions were justified, lawful, and documented. I reclined deeply, steady. Storms run out of thunder, but the storm had already started. By the middle of the afternoon, the family was mobilizing supporters. Their friend who works as a banker, Uncle Chris, texted you. They won't be bankrupted by legal fees. Rethink your decision. Additionally, Jenna implied that I was toxic by posting ambiguous family values posts on Facebook. Selfish. Immature. They were all anxious. They attempted to portray themselves as the victim. They formed a group, but I had already made the documents public. Only a lawyer, impartial third party can access the secured version of the audit logs and transcripts that I uploaded to a private legal Dropbox. All transactions, account reviews, and email correspondence are transparently logged and time-stamped, all set for exploration. Then the press began. Rumor that is not the media. I get calls from family acquaintances asking for specifics. Our group chats were forwarded to me according to friends. That night, their gossip grew my entire world. The crescendo caught my eye. Mom's attorney sent an email requesting an injunction. Emergency adherence, financial losses. Dad's letter, which was tightly worded and claimed emotional distress. Damage to one's reputation. Breach of confidence. They blamed me for everything. They covered it with affection. This was just for her start. We had no intention of hurting you. Their version of classic spin. We contributed the funds. He brutally exposed us. They were putting more and more pressure on them. However, beneath it was ridiculous. They cut me off, stole my money, broke my safe, and said I was rebelling. I looked at the inbox, which was stuffed with requests. I then sent everything to my lawyer, who reviewed my response. Counsel will direct my next course of action. I stand by my decision until then. The infrastructure is not functioning. There is no longer any trust. I never received a signature. Since there was no more space for warmth, I didn't lower the volume. My sister texted me once more later that evening. You wouldn't resort to legal means if you truly cared about this family. You simply return the favor. I took a moment to type. I threw myself into it. You sent it twice, then there was silence. The complete echoing emptiness where connection once existed rather than the electric menacing silence of threat. They grew quieter. Their systems were inactive. Their barriers started to give way. More significantly, though, they were aware that I would not revert to the previous regulations. They had drafted the rules without consulting me. The basement is decorated with unplugged Christmas lights. Cameras are not online. Drives that are shared. Unreachable. I'm looking at my phone. No one called, texted, or begged. Unseen because anger wasn't at the core of the storm. It was a result. They came up with a system. I untangled it. And now they have to deal with the consequences without even knowing how to construct a new building without me. As if they were coming for a truce, they knocked on my door. The three of them. My sister, father, and mother. Clad in grief, standing on the porch. Not in war gear. Not appropriately attired for an apology. Simply polished. Practiced. The door was opened by Maya. They weren't invited in by her. You can just stand there, she said. I remained seated. Even before my mother spoke, I could hear her voice cracking. We came not to fight. All we want to do is talk. Maya moved out of the way. Allow the words to drift through the atmosphere like smoke from a house that has already burned down. I raised my head. At last, I stood. Dad spoke first. "You look tired, son." I didn't respond. Mom took over, rehearsed and trembling. "We've made mistakes. It was never supposed to go this far. You cut everything off. You didn't have to make it so final." Then she included it. The line they'd all been building toward. "You must be there for us." It was not. "We miss you." "No. We're sorry. Just need." Like I was still a utility, a feature, a fix. I stepped forward. Maya, still beside me. "I'm not necessary for you. I gave you what you need. And it's gone." Dad's tone became harsh. "When you're gone, this family disintegrates." I said, "That's not a family. A business model is that." "Sister, come on forward." Now, angry. "Are you simply going to discard everything? What is it over?" Just one bad night. I once had a short-lived giggle. This was not a single evening. It was 20 years ago. I was treated like a backup by you, similar to infrastructure, similar to a fuse. You believed that you could always start over. But there is no power. Real tears came out of Mom's voice. "We had no intention of hurting you. We were overpowered. We were unaware of your extent." I gazed at her. That sentence, "we were unaware," it came down hard. Because you didn't care, you didn't ask. It was successful. Dad, that was enough. Give it another go. Now it's quieter. You are our son. You were raised by us. We deserve some humanity from you. No, I replied. I was brought up to feel that I owed you everything. You used it up. It's gone. Quiet. Now the wind blew more forcefully. It was chilly. Truth is sharp. To make sure they heard everything I said, I moved closer. Money did not cause me to leave. Since you didn't see me, I left. Just what I could supply. Last, I glanced at my sister. You didn't simply forfeit the benefits. You were disconnected. I then examined each one. You weren't mean. Simply put, you missed me. And I've paid the price for it already. Slowly, Maya shut the door behind them. No one knocked again. For the first time, the silence didn't feel empty as I stood there. It was clear and clean. Final. When they left, they didn't cry. They did not plead. They simply stood in awe. Because they became aware of the one unexpected thing. So I could go. That I would not return. I meant it. They were correct. Story 2. After a 14-hour flight, I arrived home to find 103 strangers. My brother's surprise engagement party. Mom let out a gasp. Dad said, "Oh, you were supposed to come tomorrow then." We all concurred. He got your car as a wedding present. I refrained from arguing. The following day, I simply behaved differently. They all appeared. Without bidding farewell, they relocated 2 states away 2 weeks later. 3 layovers, a seat that hardly reclined, and 14 hours in the air. I just wanted to take a shower. Quiet. And perhaps the lasagna I had frozen before I left. Rather, when I opened my front door, my living room was filled with 103 strangers, balloons and streamers, champagne flutes raised mid-toast, Bluetooth speaker blasting Taylor Swift, my brother in a tux, and a sign over the fireplace that read, "He said yes." The crowd barely noticed me. A few people glanced up confused. One woman whispered, "Is that the guy from the pictures?" My mom was the first to react. She gasped loud enough to draw attention, then laughed nervously and said, "Oh, you were supposed to come tomorrow." Then my dad turned from the punch bowl and said almost casually, "We all concurred. He got your car as a wedding present." No one clapped. No one asked how the flight was. No one even offered me a drink. I refrained from arguing. I didn't make a scene. I didn't even ask what they meant by "we all." Agreed. I just dropped my bag by the coat rack and nodded inside. Something clicked shut. I smiled, nodded again, and walked upstairs. Didn't unpack, didn't shower, just sat on the edge of my bed. She was still on and opened my banking app. The first thing I did, remove my brother from the shared insurance policy. Then I checked the title to the car still in my name. I bookmarked the form to transfer ownership and left it inside downstairs. They cheered for him again. I heard my mom say, "This is everything I dreamed of." The lights flickered from the hallway mirror, the reflection of a family celebrating as if nothing had cracked. But something had, and I wasn't going to glue it back together this time. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in my own bed in my own house while strangers danced in the living room below. But my mind wasn't on them. It was somewhere deeper, rewinding, unearthing moments I brushed off for years. This wasn't the first time. It was just the first time they didn't bother to hide it. I remembered last Thanksgiving my seat accidentally given to a neighbor they wanted a real estate favor from. We figured you'd understand. My mom said until I remembered the time they used my login to book a honeymoon for my sister without asking, then sent me a thank you card signed from all of us. And most of all, I remembered the time my dad called me at 2 a.m. because my brother had crashed his car. My car, and they needed a cover story for the insurance. I said yes. No one ever thanked me. That was the pattern I paid. They smiled. I showed up. They ignored me. I gave. They took. And every time I stayed quiet, they took it as confirmation that I was fine with it. That I was durable, replaceable, unshakable. But sitting there with the sound of clinking glasses below and the echo of your car is his wedding gift still ringing in my ears. I saw it all. The entire architecture of the lie they built. I wasn't a son. I was supply. They didn't see me. Just the things I could offer. A bank account with a name. A car with a title, a house with enough square footage for their parties. I started writing it all down. Not for revenge, for clarity. A digital autopsy of every time I'd been made invisible. Every time they'd asked without asking. Every time family was just code for use him. When I checked the photos they'd posted of the party, my house, my living room, my walls, I wasn't in a single one. No mention of me returning home. No. Welcome back. Just hashtags like hashtag best brother ever and hashtag future Langfords. I scrolled back to older posts, birthday dinners I'd paid for, weddings I'd flown to, hospital bills I'd covered. My name didn't exist in any of them. Like I was never there. Like I was just a ghost who left money on the table and vanished before the cameras came out. I thought about the car, the one they now claimed was a gift. I remember the day I bought it, how I'd worked late hours and eaten canned soup for months to avoid a loan. I didn't buy that car for him. I bought it for me. It was the first thing I'd allowed myself to want. But in their eyes, if I wasn't using it, it was up for grabs. That's what cracked me open. Not the party, not the crowd, not even my mom's gasp. It was the realization that I wasn't real to them. Not really, just a line item in the family budget. So I got to work quietly, methodically. I pulled receipts, emails, screenshots, titles, bank statements. They wanted a surprise engagement party. They were about to get a surprise exit. The next morning, I got up before sunrise. I didn't make coffee. I didn't shower. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall like I was loading the mission plan in my head. They made a choice last night when they said it out loud. We all agreed. Your car is his wedding gift. They weren't asking. They weren't checking. They weren't considering. They decided. So did I. I logged into the insurance account first. The car was still under my policy. I removed it. Effective immediately. No coverage. Next, I went into the vehicle title registry. The car was mine. Fully, legally. No transfer had ever been completed. I bookmarked the process to report unauthorized use downstairs. I heard the party start to wrap. Boxes dragged, laughter fading, plates clinking into trash bags. I stayed upstairs at 7:04 a.m. I pulled up our family phone plan. 5 lines. Mine, my brother's, my parents', and the backup phone my dad used for travel. All paid by me. I transferred ownership of all lines to them. They had 72 hours to accept. Otherwise, the lines would be terminated. Then I logged into the home security system. The one I'd installed. Smart locks, cameras, thermostat, all under my management account. One click. Suspend license. Gone. I shut off their access to cloud backups. Disabled the mesh Wi-Fi nodes I personally configured. Killed the remote thermostat schedules that adjusted their house temperatures based on daily habits in less than 10 minutes. Their house went from automated smart home to a blank brick box. I didn't send a warning. I didn't write a note. At 9:17 a.m., my brother texted, "Bro, the security cameras are down. Can you fix it?" I didn't reply at 10:04 a.m. My dad called. I declined. At 11:02 a.m., my mom texted, "The phones aren't working. Are you doing something?" I closed the phone. They thought I was being petty. They thought this was about a car. They had no idea. I was just getting started. By noon, I'd contacted the bank to freeze the joint emergency fund we'd set up years ago when Dad had heart surgery. I was the primary. I froze it. I called the mortgage company. The house had been refinanced 5 years back with me as co-signer. I filed for removal. Given their current income levels, I knew they wouldn't qualify a loan. The process would trigger an immediate review. At 2:46 p.m., my dad texted again. "This is childish. Let's talk at 4:13 p.m. My brother texted, "Why would you do this? He needs the car." I did not respond. Instead, I contacted the insurance company again, filed a stolen vehicle report because legally the car was still mine. I provided proof of title registration in the last known location. They told me to expect a follow-up. By the evening, the group text started. First, my mom. "You're overreacting." Then my brother. "You were never really part of this family anyway." Then my dad. "You think you can pull the plug and we'll beg? We'll be fine without you." I kept the messages screenshotted each one, organized them into folders. This wasn't about revenge. This was about finally enforcing the borders of a territory they thought was theirs. That night, I sent a single message to my cousin Mara. "You were right. I've started pulling the systems." Her reply came instantly. "It's about time." The next day, I called the IT company. I co-founded my parents' accounting firm, their backend. I'd set up the entire architecture. I requested to terminate their access. Effected immediately. It wasn't malicious. It was clean. No data wipe, no sabotage. Just revoked licenses, disabled security certificates, and a request for them to migrate to independent services. The IT manager at my company called me 2 hours later. "They're freaking out. You sure?" I was sure. At 3:22 p.m., my dad sent the final text. "Family is all you have." I didn't reply. Instead, I drafted a letter. A clean, official, notarized document. I revoked all authorizations. I withdrew from all shared accounts. I removed myself from cosign liabilities. The final class. I am no longer responsible for the financial stability, digital infrastructure, property management, or insurance coverage of any party mentioned herein. I printed 2 copies. I mailed one to their house. I kept the other. 2 weeks later, they moved 2 states away without saying goodbye. No text, no call, not even a forwarded address. They didn't need to. I already knew they didn't want me. They wanted the system I built. Now they have neither. And I've never breathed easier. It took exactly 24 hours for the first explosion. I was at my desk writing up final instructions to transfer my name off the last remaining utility bills, when my phone lit up 76 missed calls for voicemails. One group text titled, "From your mother." I didn't even need to read it. I already knew. But curiosity won. "You've gone too far. We were hurt. But now you're just being cruel. This is not how family treats each other. Come home. Talk to us. We'll forgive you. Forgive me." That word lit something electric behind my eyes. Not rage. Something colder. Something surgical. By the second day, the narrative machine was in full spin. My brother posted a filtered photo of my old car, the one I'd reclaimed legally 2 days prior, with the caption, "Some people don't understand what sacrifice means. I gave everything for this family and got stabbed in the back." Comments poured in. "You deserve better? Blood doesn't make family stay strong." My aunt shared the post to her story tag. My mom added a crying emoji and the word heartbroken. They were positioning playing victim, shaping the script, but behind the scenes they were scrambling. By 4 p.m., I got an alert that someone tried to access the insurance portal using my old login. 10 minutes later, a call from the title bureau. "Mr. Langford, someone just submitted a dispute on the vehicle transfer. Are you aware?" I was. They were trying to undo the last 2 weeks with panic and paperwork. They didn't know the digital threads were already severed. I'd rebuilt the house of cards and pulled my cards out that night. My mom left the voicemail long, teary, slurred in places. "You don't understand what you've done. You think you're safe now that they love you out there, but they won't. You'll always be broken. We kept you. We kept you safe when no one else would. And this is how you thank us." She hung up with a sob. At midnight, my sister texted, "We're still your family, even if you hate us." Then the flip. "But you were always selfish. This is who you are. You deserve to be alone." There it was. They pleaded. Then they blamed. Now they've withdrawn completely. Day 3. Full offensive. My cousin Ellie called me shaking. "They had a family dinner last night," she said. "Your mom stood up like she was delivering a eulogy. Said you've gone off the deep end. Said they're worried you'll hurt yourself." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictably manipulative. Did she mention bricks were the part where I gave them free insurance security cell service for 7 years? Ellie went quiet. Then she whispered no. She said you changed after college, that you're unstable, that they tried everything. I thanked her for calling and I made a folder. Defamation counter. Filled it with screenshots, security footage, bank statements, every contract they signed in my name, every voicemail. By that night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was the local pastor. "I've had your mother in my office in tears," he said. "She said you've isolated her, that you canceled their mortgage. Is there any truth to that?" I didn't yell. I didn't defend. I said one sentence. "If she can tell you what the monthly payment is without checking her phone, I'll reinstate it." He paused, then said quietly, "She didn't know." I thanked him, hung up, blocked the number. Day 5, the fake reconciliation. A text came from my dad. "First time in over a week. Let's fix this. We've all said things we regret." The phrase hit like broken glass. We are not. I'm sorry, not. What we did was wrong, just a reshuffling of guilt, like poker chips. I didn't reply. An hour later, a package showed up. No return address. Just a small wooden box. Old card with my initials inside. My childhood photos. All of them. Some cut in half. Some burned at the corners. And a note. "This is what a racing family looks like." I stared at it for a full minute. Then I scanned every photo, uploaded them to the cloud, and dropped the box into the trash without blinking. Day 7, the public ambush. It happened at a grocery store. I was checking out when I heard, "There he is." I turned 3 people, family friends, 2 neighbors, and Mrs. Langford. Yes, the woman who got my seat at Christmas dinner. She walked up to me, arms folded, her eyes glinting with moral superiority. "You've made your poor mother sick. She's lost 10 pounds crying over you." Then do you feel proud I didn't answer, but I did pull out my phone. Press play on the security footage, the one where my mother damaged my car during an emotional outburst. No words, just the truth. They all watched. One woman gasped. I took the phone away and said calmly, "Pride doesn't come into it, but self-respect does." I left them, their mouths open, their sympathy cracked wide. They turned. Total collapse. I got a text from Mara. They're moving 2 states away. Didn't tell anyone, just left. No forwarding address, no announcement, just gone. They packed up in the dead of night and ghosted every cousin, uncle, and as if disappearing would undo the shame. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel sorrow, just stillness, like a storm had passed. And all that remained was truth. Not the version they fed to France, not the script they wrote over dinner tables and Facebook posts, but the truth. I lived a truth backed by contracts, signatures, receipts, bruises they hoped no one would ever trace. They moved without goodbye, because the last thing they wanted to do was face me sober. They thought disappearing would end it. New house, new state, no forwarding address, like ghosts fleeing the fallout of their own choices. But I wasn't chasing them. I was preparing the files, because even in absence they kept spreading their version, the revision. And I knew eventually it would reach the wrong ears, the kind that mattered. It started with a LinkedIn message from a former miner. Heard about the family breakdown. Hope you're okay. Polite. Neutral. Suspiciously neutral. I asked where he'd heard it. He replied, "Your mom came to a board dinner. Said you'd gone no contact after accusing them of financial abuse. He added she said they forgave you anyway." Forgave me that word again. I asked if she mentioned the $1,200 or $400 backyard remodel, the stolen vehicle title, the fact she smashed my windshield with a landscaping brick. He didn't reply, but I knew what had to happen next. I opened the folder. It had everything. Video footage of my mom hurling bricks at my car, screenshots of bank withdrawals without authorization, email confirmations of wedding expenses rerouted to my card, transcripts of threats, recordings of voicemails, a copy of the lawsuit, photos of the damage, receipts, receipts, receipts. I uploaded everything to a private Google Drive folder, then created a read-only link. That afternoon, I made one public post. I've stayed quiet out of respect. But lies have currency, and I won't pay interest on other people's debts anymore. I didn't burn bridges. I built them. And when they started charging tolls to cross, I stopped maintaining them. If you've heard a version of events where I'm the monster, here's the other side. Judge for yourself. Attached. Link. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't add drama. No names, no accusations, just evidence. Within 12 hours, it had over 6,000 views. First reactions. Silence. Then a trickle. One cousin messaged, "I had no idea. I'm sorry. I didn't ask your side a second. I believed what they said. Now I feel sick. Even my head." The one who called to uninvite me from the backyard party replied, "I didn't know how bad it got. You deserved better." I didn't reply to any of them. This wasn't about approval. This was about balance. They had tilted the scale for years with their gossip, their group chats, their vague prayers in church pews for their lost boy. I just placed weight on the other side and it snapped back. Heart. Then came the news I didn't expect. A local journalist, someone who'd followed my tech firm's early growth, messaged me. "We're doing a feature on generational exploitation and family systems. I read your post. Would you be willing to speak anonymously?" I asked. "What kind of angle?" She said, "You built something. They harvested it. We see that more and more." I agreed. We spoke for an hour. I kept it clean. No names, just facts. Patterns. Power dynamics. The article dropped a week later, headlined, "The Silent Breadwinner, When Family Becomes Infrastructure." I wasn't the focus, but one quote stood out. "When you grow up thinking love is measured by what you provide, you don't notice you've become a utility until someone cuts the line and screams about the darkness that night." I got an email from my father. Subject: "We saw the article. No body, no signature, just an attachment. A blurry scan of a typed letter, maybe from a lawyer, maybe not. It set C's public dissemination of defamatory claims. I forwarded it to my attorney." He wrote back, "Not even close to legally actionable. This isn't defamation. This is documentation." He also added, "Well done. Quiet precision is rare. They didn't want truth. They wanted shame." But I wasn't ashamed. I was proud because now everyone knew who paid for the house, who got cut out of Christmas, who had their seat taken by a flooring dealer who smiled and left instead of screaming, and most importantly, who said enough. And minute they didn't just lose me. They lost access to what I provided. They lost control. And for people like them, that's the worst loss of all. They showed up unannounced. No text, no call, no warning. Just 3 silhouettes on my porch at sunset. Mom, Dad, and my brother standing like a jury that finally agreed to meet the accused. I didn't open the door and watch from inside. Lights off. Silent, then a knock. Soft at first, then again, louder. Finally, my mom's voice. "We just want to talk." I stood open the door but didn't step aside. She looked smaller than I remembered. Makeup faded, hair grayer, eye swollen. My father didn't meet my gaze. My brother was scrolling through his phone like none of this mattered. My mom exhaled shakily, started rehearsing. "We've had time to think. We know we went too far. But you did too. And maybe we all just need to start over." Then came the real line. The core of every manipulation we wrapped as humility. "We want you back." I asked one question. Why my dad finally spoke. "Because you're our son." But it didn't sound like conviction. It sounded like claim. My mom chimed in. "You belong with us. We raised you. We were just scared and proud, and maybe a little blind." She was waiting for me to break, for the tremor, for the sign of collapse. Instead, I said, "You didn't come because you missed me. You came because the system broke, and you can't fix it without me." My brother finally glanced up, smirked. "Are you seriously doing this?" Still, I turned to him, flat voice. "You took the car without asking. It wasn't yours to take." He shrugged. "You weren't using it." There it was, still unchanged. My mom tried again. "Please, just dinner one night as a family." I let the silence stretch long enough to feel like a decision. Then I said it. "You didn't lose the dinner. You lost me." She blinked like the words didn't compute. I added, calm, steady. "I didn't leave because of money, or a car, or a party. I left because every time I showed up, you made me invisible. I was never your son. I was the balance sheet, the tech guy, the emergency fund. You raised me to be dependable and then hated me for depending on myself. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm just done." No one spoke. Not even my brother. My mom's voice cracked. "But we're trying. Isn't that worth something?" I shook my head. Trying means change. You came here to reset, not to grow. You want me back. Not because you love me, but because life without me is harder. She finally cried real tears this time. My father tried to pull her back, but before they turned away, I added, "This isn't punishment. It's protection for me." And then I closed the door. Soft, final. No slam, no scream. Just silence. Not empty. Not cold, but clean. Story 3. For Dad's birthday, I gave him $14,000 and a trip to a posh resort. He didn't express gratitude, simply grinned. "In a sense, your sister is the only one, right now," Mom added. We formally gave her our signature on everything. Grandma disagrees, I just stated. Some accounts were paused 2 days later. Their lawyer called me first, and the legal documents were quietly updated. Dad opened the envelope while Grandma, who was seated beside me, was grinning. He did not recoil. No surprise. Not surprisingly. He simply nodded calmly as if I had given him a check for $14,000 and a utility bill rather than a reservation for an all-inclusive week at his ideal resort, the Banyan Tree in Phuket. When I outshined my sister Ellie, Mom, who was sitting next to him, gave me that tight-lipped smile she always saved for me. "How generous of you," she said, as if my gift had inconvenienced her somehow. Then Dad leaned back in his chair, folded the envelope neatly, and said the words that made the blood drained from my face. "Your sister is essentially the only heir now." I blinked. What Mom chimed in before I could even process it. We formally gave her our signature on everything. I sat there, the steak dinner I treated them to suddenly turning to ash in my mouth. I'd driven for hours just to be there. I'd spent weeks planning the surprise, calculating the finances, pulling from my savings, because despite everything, I still wanted to believe I mattered. I looked at them, at their smug, detached faces, and quietly said, "Grandma disagrees." And that's when Mom's fork paused midair. That smile twitched. 2 days later, I got a call from their lawyer. "Hi, we need to talk," he said. Grandma was sitting beside me, sipping tea. She leaned in and whispered, "Time to adjust the paperwork." She smiled, and for the first time in years, so did I. Growing up, I always thought loyalty was the currency of love. I paid with obedience, silence, and sacrifice. Ellie, on the other hand, paid with presence. That's all she had to do. Exist. And somehow, that was enough. She was the miracle child. The one Mom almost lost during a difficult labor. The one whose photo hung in the hallway 3 times in 3 different frames, while mine was in a single dusty album in a drawer. She cried. She got jewelry. I cried. I got told to toughen up. It didn't matter how much I gave. When Dad's business took a hit during COVID, who sent $10,000 to help him keep the lights on? Me. When Mom needed emergency dental work and didn't want to dip into her vacation fund, that was my savings account too. They never asked directly. They didn't need to. All it took was a phone call, a sigh, a carefully placed comment like, "Well, I guess we'll just cancel the trip we were planning." Unless some miracle happens. I became that miracle over and over. Meanwhile, Ellie was busy finding herself in Bali, Morocco, and Iceland, one yoga retreat at a time. She hadn't worked a full-time job in 6 years. Her last attempt was a 3-month Etsy shop that sold painted rocks. She once got a PayPal donation from Dad for $3,000, because starting a business is hard. The worst part, I let it happen. I kept telling myself, "You're the responsible one. They just need help until things settle down." But things never settled. They just got more comfortable taking every birthday I did myself. New car parts for Dad's truck, a spa weekend for Mom, groceries repairs, even their streaming subscriptions. I paid for it all. But Ellie, she'd show up with a bottle of cheap wine and a selfie stick and get praised like she was Mother Teresa. And then came Dad's birthday this year. The resort trip was meant to be my final act of love. Not a bribe, not a plea. Just something pure. A gift without strings. I booked it months in advance, negotiated the price, even arranged a private guide for their hikes and spa treatments. The $14,000 was meant to be a gesture, a bridge. Instead, I was handed a wrecking ball. We signed everything over to Ellie. Just like that. No warning, no explanation. Not even a conversation. I wasn't just excluded from the will, I was erased. Dad didn't even look at me when he said it. Just swirled his wine and kept chewing, like we were talking about the weather. Ellie wasn't even there. She didn't need to be. Her absence was louder than my presence could ever be. She had won by default again. I drove home in silence that night, knuckles white on the steering wheel, the road blurring with rage. I wasn't even angry at them anymore. I was angry at myself. Angry for the years I'd spent trying to buy their approval for the 1,000 ways. I contorted myself into being the good son, the stable one, the dependable one. But something shifted in me the moment I said those words. Grandma disagrees. See, what Mom and Dad didn't know was that Grandma, their own mother, had quietly reached out to me last year. She was getting older, sharper than both of them combined, and sick of how they treated me. She'd seen it all, the favoritism, the financial leeching. "Your sister's not the problem," she told me once. "Your parents are. She just learned from them." And then she said the thing that shook me to my core. I changed my estate plan. You'll understand why soon. That night after Dad's birthday dinner, I called her, told her what happened. She didn't say much. Just, "I'll take care of it." 2 days later, their account started freezing. Their lawyer reached out, frantic, sweating. Turns out the family trust had a few clauses. They forgot about clauses. Grandma had full authority over their official signing to Ellie. It had been blocked. Their lawyer called me first because Grandma made me executor. And that was just the beginning. The lawyer stammered over the phone. It appears there's been a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. That was rich. What he meant was, you're not in control anymore and it's scaring a lot of us. He tried to smooth it over. Said things like temporary hold, routine clarification. Nothing personal. But when I asked him directly, who has power of attorney now? He paused for a full 6 seconds before saying, technically your grandmother. Technically. Meanwhile, my parents were blowing up my phone like teenagers. 15 missed calls, 12 texts, one pathetic voice message from Mom whispering, "We need to talk. It's not what you think, not what I think. You made it clear I no longer mattered." That's not exactly ambiguous. They wanted a meeting somewhere neutral. I chose Grandma's house, the moment they walked through the door. Mom already had that watery-eyed expression loaded up. Dad had his lawyer face on, stoic, cold, fake as ever, Ellie. She wears sunglasses indoors, probably hungover from her latest healing ceremony. Grandma didn't waste time. She sat at the head of the table, a stack of folders in front of her, like a judge ready to deliver sentence. I sat at her right, the seat they used to reserve for Ellie. "Let's begin," she said. Dad cleared his throat. "I think there's been some overreach." Grandma didn't blink. "No, there's been a correction." Mom jumped in. "This is a family matter. We can't have the estate disrupted. It is a family matter," Grandma snapped. "Which is why I took back control. You thought you could rewrite everything and exclude my grandson, the one person in this family who's actually taking care of people." Mom's face turned blotchy. "We never excluded him. You made your intentions clear." I said, my voice steady. "You looked me in the eye and told me Ellie was the only heir. Now, after everything I've done, all the money, all the support, you treated me like I was never meant to be involved." Ellie scoffed. "Oh, please. You're acting like a martyr." I turned to her slowly. "Ellie, I paid for your debt consolidation 3 years ago. You told me it was for medical bills, but it was credit card debt from your trip to Dillon. I know because I paid it directly to the lender, and I said nothing." She went quiet. "You remember that time your apartment flooded and Dad said the landlord was being unfair? I found out the real reason. It was because you never fixed the leak. I paid for the repairs, and when you still got evicted, guess who paid your first and last month at the next place?" Ellie froze. For once, she had no response. "You always assumed I'd keep bailing you out, that I'd stay quiet." Well, surprised, Grandma slid one of the folders across the table. "These are the new documents. The family trust now lists him as primary beneficiary. Not you. Not either of you." She nodded at my parents. "I rewrote the distribution clauses. I also revoked the power of attorney. You tricked me into signing. 2 years ago, your little retirement plan is canceled." Mom gasped. "You can't just—" "I can't, and I did." Grandma snapped, and your lawyer confirmed it. Dad's jaw clenched. "So what now? You're going to punish us for everything we've built together?" "You built nothing with me," Grandma replied icily. "Everything I gave you was for our family. You've turned it into a machine for entitlement and vanity." Ellie stood up. "This is ridiculous. So what? He gets everything. You're giving him the house, the shares." "That's not fair." "No," I said calmly. "I'm not taking everything, just what's owed." Man tried one last Hail Mary. She turned to me, tears finally falling. "We didn't mean to hurt you. We thought you'd be okay. You're always the strong one." "And that's exactly the problem," I interrupted. "You treated my love like it was infinite, like you could bleed me dry, and I'd still show up with gifts. Well, I'm done showing up. I'm not your safety net anymore." Dad slammed his palm on the table. "You ungrateful." Grandma stood at 90. She still commanded a room like a general. "You will not raise your voice at him. Not in my house. Not again." Silence. Grandma looked at me and smiled. Just a little. We're done here. And just like that, it was over. They left in a swirl of indignation and disbelief. But I stayed behind. For the first time in my life. I wasn't the one being dismissed. They didn't believe it at first. The shock in their eyes when Grandma closed that folder was almost comical. Like they truly thought their grip on the family fortune was eternal. Like I couldn't possibly have the audacity to fight back. But it didn't stop at that meeting. 3 days later, the dominoes started falling fast. The family lawyer, who had always been more loyal to Dad than the law itself, quietly signed a letter stating his firm would no longer represent them due to a conflict of interest. Translation, he realized the winning side had changed. Then came the audit. See, Grandma hadn't just rewritten the trust. She'd hired a forensic accountant. Apparently, some of those gifts to Ellie weren't just generous gestures. They were fraudulent withdrawals from a joint family account under the trust umbrella. And worse, some of them had forged consent signatures, including mine. I sat in a meeting with Grandma, 2 attorneys, and the accountant as they laid out exactly how $87,000 had been siphoned in emergency loans that were never reported. Most of it coincidentally lined up with Ellie's sudden spiritual retreat's cosmetic procedures. And that time she went on a 2-month sabbatical in the Maldives. The documents didn't lie. I didn't need revenge. The truth was doing the work for me. By the end of that week, the accounts my parents had depended on were either frozen or restructured to the cozy little retirement they'd been planning. Bankrolled by the trust was now a pipe dream. They'd have to dip into their own savings. You know, like normal people. Dad called once, left a voicemail. Just one. I hope you're proud of yourself. Proud, no. I was free. Ellie, on the other hand, went into full meltdown mode. She posted a 12-part story on Instagram, crying in her car about how toxic family structures always try to silence powerful feminine energy, which was hilarious coming from the same woman who once told me I was too sensitive. When I asked why she never paid me back for the laptop I bought her. But the best part? The comments section. It was full of people calling her out because I posted receipts. Literally, I uploaded proof of payments, emails, and signed IOUs. I didn't even have to write a caption. The screenshots spoke for themselves. Her spiritual followers quickly turned against her. People began questioning her online behavior. Poetic justice. No, it was divine. Meanwhile, my life. It didn't just change, it blossomed. I moved into a place I'd been eyeing for over a year. Nothing flashy, just a sleek 2-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows and a patio that caught the morning sun just right. I bought it in full, no mortgage. Grandma insisted on transferring part of the trust into my name immediately. "You've earned your peace," she said. "Spend it wisely." So I did. I took 2 months off work, traveled solo through Italy, Greece, and Croatia. Not for Instagram, not for clout, just to feel sunlight on my face and places no one could take from me. I didn't call my parents once. They, however, kept trying emails about how family should come together. Messages from Mom asking if I could help with their unexpected medical bills. A birthday card from Dad. Signed, "Love always," with no return address. It was too late. Ellie tried her last move. 6 weeks later. Showed up at my building crying. Sunglasses off this time. No makeup. Ron, shaking. "I need help," she said. "They cut me off. Grandma won't talk to me." I didn't gloat. I didn't scream. I just opened the door halfway and said, "Now you know how it feels," and closed it. Click. After that, they stopped trying. I focused on my life. Finally, my own life started. My consulting firm hired 2 staff, expanded in 6 months. Clients came fast. Word-of-mouth referrals from people who appreciated honesty and follow through. Traits I had learned the hard way. One evening, as I reviewed contracts in my new office, a letter arrived handwritten from Grandma. It just said, "You did good. I'm proud of you." They thought blood meant obedience. You showed them what loyalty really looks like. G. That night I slept like I hadn't in years. I thought it was over. I thought that by cutting them off, walking away, and reclaiming what was mine, the story had reached its final page. But closure, I've learned, isn't silence. It's not just the absence of conflict. It's understanding why the war existed in the first place. In the months after everything unraveled, I felt something new. It wasn't peace. Not at first. It was stillness. The kind of quiet that unnerves you because you're so used to living on emotional alert. No more phone calls asking for favors. No more texts. Disguise this check-ins that always ended with a request. No guilt traps, no manipulations. I was free. And yet something kept gnawing at me. Not regret, not doubt, a question. Why me? Why had I been the one to hold everything up for so long? Why did they trust me with their chaos, but not with their respect? It haunted me until one Sunday morning when I found myself at Grandma's kitchen table again, staring at the same cup of tea she always served. Black. No sugar. "You're thinking too hard," she said without looking up from her newspaper. "Do you think they ever loved me?" I asked. She lowered the paper. "They loved what you gave them," she said slowly. "That's not the same thing. But didn't they see what they were doing? How they used me? They saw it," she said flatly. "They just didn't care." I sat back, let that truth soak through me like cold rain. "You don't know people anything just because they share your blood," she added. "The people who love you prove it through choice, not obligation." I nodded, and for the first time, I believed it. Closure didn't come in one moment. It came in waves, like when I visited an old friend I hadn't seen in years. Someone I distanced myself from because I was too busy being the emotional wallet of my family. We laughed like no time had passed, and she said something that stopped me mid-sip of coffee. "You seem lighter, like you finally stepped out of someone else's shadow." I had, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. It started with a message from a name I hadn't seen in over 2 decades. Diana, my father's first wife. I barely remembered her growing up. Dad didn't talk about her much except to say she abandoned the family. But now here she was messaging me through LinkedIn of all places. I read something about the family business online. "Thought you should know. You have another sibling." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Another sibling. We arranged to meet a small cafe, neutral ground. Diana was older now, of course, but there was something in her eyes, something familiar. And then he walked in. Tall, my age. Same eyes as mine. Same walk. His name was Mark, half-brother. He'd grown up across the country, raised by Diana. No contact with Dad since he was 6. Diana had left. Not because she was cruel, but because Dad had drained her emotionally and financially, just like he tried to do to me. Mark was her son from that marriage, and when she refused to sign over her inheritance to support one of Dad's failed ventures, he'd cut them both off. Sound familiar? Mark had watched my story unfold from afar. Watched as Dad and Mom's financial schemes unraveled online. Watched as I became the new version of her, taken for granted and then left out. "I always wondered what kind of person he'd raise," Mark said. "Turns out someone of a lot stronger than him." He slid something across the table, a folder. "Grandma's not the only one who's been documenting everything inside. Emails, photos, account records from decades ago. Proof that the manipulation hadn't started with me or even with Ellie. It had started long before and followed a pattern that had been running games for years. Repeating the same cycle with different people, always blaming them when the well ran dry. He hadn't just tried to exploit me. He'd made a life out of exploiting everyone. But here's the twist. Mark had built his own life quietly, successfully on a logistics company. No debts, no chaos. He didn't want revenge. He wanted justice. "I think it's time to tell the full story," he said. "Not just for you, for everyone he hurt." We contacted Grandma. She agreed. Together we filed a civil case not to destroy him, but to expose him, to put the truth on record. When Dad was served those papers, That was the moment his story fell apart. The local press picked it up. Well-known consultant accused of coercive financial abuse. Inside own family trust. Headlines. Embarrassment. The truth changed how people saw him. And the best part, he couldn't touch me. Not legally, not financially, not emotionally. I stood on the courthouse steps the day of the filing. Sunlight pouring down like vindication. Grim on one side, Mark on the other. 3 generations, 3 survivors, 3 people who had enough. Sometimes justice doesn't come in the form of jail cells or public shaming. Sometimes it's knowing the person who tried to silence you no longer holds power. Sometimes it's the silence in your own home, the kind you earned. Sometimes it's your phone staying quiet, and you not missing the noise. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm done. I don't know them. Anything. Not a cent. Not an apology. Not a return call. What I built on my own what I reclaimed. I reclaimed with truth. And what I know now is this. Being born into a family doesn't make you theirs. Being broken by them and still standing, that makes you your own. And I intend to stay that way forever.